Alright, we're here, Damien exclaimed as the three of them had finally reached their destination. They stood in front of the gray building that Wyatt had seen when he had first gotten to town. Up close, it was only slightly bigger than the other houses, and the windows reflected back their surroundings in the morning light. They had also found that the building was on a slightly higher elevation than the other buildings, as it sat on a small hill with a staircase leading up to two glass doors that acted as the entrance to the building. "This is the lab?" Sunset asked. "Yeah. Were you expecting something else?" Damien asked. "I was thinking maybe a room within a school or university. I wasn't expecting the whole building to be a lab." Well, people who are devoted to figuring out the mysteries of Pokemon tend to get a lot of funding. Buildings like these are found in almost every region where the region's Pokemon professor do their research. What kind of things do they research? Well, pretty much anything about Pokemon. There's Professor Elman Jodo, who researches how breeding works, Professor Birch and Hoenn, who studies their habitats, and Professor Rowan in the Sinnoh region, who studies Pokemon evolution. And those are just a few examples. Wow, and it's just those people by themselves who research those things? Well, no. Pokemon professors do have assistants to help them. They're just the head researcher of a region and field of study. "Hey Damien, what does Professor Silverton research?" Wyatt asked. "Oh, it's... Damien said before he began to trail off. He then began scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. "I actually don't remember what she researches. All I remember is that it has something to do with rare Pokemon. But I'm sure we can ask her when we get our starter Pokemon." "What do you mean by starter Pokemon? You mentioned that earlier," Sunset asked. Starter Pokemon are considered a trainer's first Pokemon. Usually trainers can go to the professor of a region to get one from them, or they can inherit one or someone can get one for them, Wyatt said as he was able to remember what starter Pokemon were. "Wait, you both mentioned the word trainer. Is that someone who teaches Pokemon tricks and stuff?" Pokemon trainers are people who train their Pokemon to get stronger by having them battle other wild Pokemon or Pokemon used by other trainers. Pokemon battling is somewhat of a common sport that happens in every region. "Wait, you have animals fight each other?" Sunset exclaimed. She had heard about how some people and ponies in both versions of Questia have animals fight against each other for sport, and it was almost always a bloody fight. She shivered at the idea of what Fluttershy would do if she found out that people in this world had animals fight each other. And from the way Wyatt explained what a trainer was, it sounded like it was something that happened commonly. "No, it's fine. Pokemon are somewhat competitive creatures that see battles as an opportunity to get stronger. Pokemon battles are just a way for both a trainer and their Pokemon to grow closer and stronger together. Even wild Pokemon fight against each other all the time, and various ways have been developed to help a Pokemon to heal after a battle so that they can be back in tip-top shape almost immediately." "Yep, that's also why I want to go on a journey and take on the Gym Challenge," Damien said. "Gym Challenge?" Sunset asked. The Gym Challenge is something that happens within every region. Trainers travel across the region to various cities where they can battle against powerful trainers known as gym leaders. If a trainer wins against a gym leader, they are rewarded their gym badge and can continue on to the next one. Once a trainer has gotten all gym badges within a region, they can take on the Pokemon League, where they take on the strongest trainer in the region known as the champion. If a trainer wins, they then claim the champion's title and become the new strongest trainer of the region. Though there have been some complications involving the Gym Challenge for the past year. "Why is that?" Wyatt asked. The first Augur also acted as a Torrens region's 8th and final gym leader, but ever since he disappeared, no one has been able to get an 8th gym badge. It also doesn't help that no one has tried to become the new A gym leader ever since he disappeared. But it's not only that, shortly after the first Augur disappeared, the champion also disappeared as well, and no one knows where she went. Someone else did step up and prove themselves to be worthy of filling in the role as a temporary champion until she returns, but the problem lies with that no one knows who's the one filling the role. But that doesn't mean I don't want to still take on the Gym Challenge. I feel like I need a dictionary or something at this point, with how many things I don't know. "Who's this Augur you two are talking about?" Sunset asked as she rubbed her hand against her temple as she listened to everything that the two boys said. Thankfully, Wyatt gave a short description as to who the Augur was so Sunset could get the gist of it, and also that the current one was coming to Telnar Town, and that's why they were trying to get a Pokemon from Professor Sylvan. "Wait, that doesn't make sense. Is the champion the strongest trainer in Torren, or is it the Augur?" Sunset asked as she was even more confused. "Technically the Augur, but since no one has seen how strong the stand-in champion is, no one can say for sure," Damien said. "I feel like my head is spinning from all of this," Sunset said, thinking how either of the Twilights she knew would be able to get a better grasp from this information. "Don't worry, I'm also learning about some of this stuff," Wyatt said. "Now that the explanations are out of the way, let's go in," Damien said. The three of them headed up the stairs and entered the lab, where they found themselves in a very spacious room. The floors were hardwood, while the wallpaper was that of a dark blue. They currently seemed to be in the entryway of the lab, however the rest of it was blocked off by bookshelves filled with a variety of books that were behind a sliding glass wall. Though there was a walkway in the form of a large gap between the bookshelves, which the three of them went to and saw the rest of the room. More bookshelves lined the left and right walls, but the back wall had a variety of machines and computers lined it. though there was also a gap in the back right wall where a staircase leading down could be seen. Wyatt also noticed a similar tube-shaped machine as the one he saw on the Cult of Darkrai's base. Finally, there was a table towards the middle of the right side of the room that stood upon a green carpet. Said carpet also stretched along the entire width of the room, though it ended right before it reached the walls. Standing in the middle of the room were two people who appeared to be in the middle of a serious discussion. The first was a young woman with white skin, black hair that almost appeared navy, and blue eyes that were behind a pair of black glasses. She wore a red shirt and black shorts underneath a white lab coat that reached to her ankles, where she could also be seen wearing black boots. The second person was a man who also looked young, but his appearance made it hard to tell. He had white skin, short jet black hair, and dark gray eyes that almost looked completely black with bags under them. He wore a white button-up shirt and white pants that were covered by a black trench coat with red buttons that reached just below his knees. Finally, he was wearing a pair of black loafers and a black bowler hat on his head that had a white stripe going around it. "Listen, Professor, these Pokemon, they're freaks," the man said. "No other trainer would want them, and we can't keep them any longer. All you want for you is to take them. We already keep a bunch of Eevee as is. Surely these three won't be a bother. Why do you care about them? I know what you've done," the woman said. The man in return gave a heavy sigh. "It's true. I'm merciless. I've done some awful things, but there's no reason for these Pokemon to die." It was also at this moment that Damien decided to make their presence known. Hello?" he said, which caused the two of them to turn towards the three of them. "I'm Damien, this is Wyatt, and Sunset. Wyatt and I are here to get a Pokemon so we can go into the forest safely and talk with Professor Sylvan about something." The two people in front of them stared at the three of them before the man turned back to the woman and continued the conversation. "Sylvan, if you don't take these Pokemon, I'll release them, and they're sure to die in the wild. If you want, you can just give it to these kids, right?" Professor Sylvan seemed to take a moment to think over what the man had just said. Then, after letting out a sigh, she gestured towards the table. "Put them on the table." "Very well," the man said. He then approached the table and reached into a pocket on his trench coat. He then pulled out 3 small balls that were split into 2 halves by a black band that was wrapped around it. The top half was red while the bottom half was white. Clicking a white button that stuck out from the band, the balls rapidly grew in size before they were each the size of a baseball, the sight of which left Sunset amazed. The man then placed each ball on the table an equal distance away from each other before he turned towards the 3 of them and walked towards them before he was right in front of them. "Excuse me, please," the man said. "Oh, sorry," Sunset said as the 3 of them moved out of the way. They then watched the man pass by them and exit the building, though Sunset had a weird sense of unease when she was listening to his and Professor Sylvan's conversation. Deciding to ignore it, they then walked towards Sylvan. "So you said you two are in need of a Pokemon?" Professor Sylvan asked. "Yes, ma'am, but we're hoping to ask you about something as it involves Sunset," Damien said as Sunset stepped forward. "I see. And what is it that you want to talk about?" "Well, the thing is," Sunset said as she began to explain how she was from another world and how she had gone to this one, though she made sure to leave out Equestria and the fact that she was from there, simply saying that she was from the human version of it. "You're not messing with me, right?" "She's not. You should have seen her reaction when she saw a Pokemon for the first time," Damien said, trying to help. "If that's the case, then," Professor Sylvan said before she rapidly ran over to one of the computers and grabbed a clipboard on top of it that had some papers and a pen on before she rushed back to Sunset with an expression of childlike wonderment. "Tell me everything about your world." "What?" Sunset asked as she was shocked as she saw a familiar gleam in Sylvan's eyes, one that brought to mind Sidetoy and Princess Twilight's own when they found something they were excited to study and observe. "What is your world like? How advanced is your technology? Are humans in your world capable of utilizing interdimensional travel if you were able to get here? How long do humans of your world live? How advanced is your architecture? Please tell and spare no details." Professor Sylvan? "We're wondering if you know of any way that can help Sunset get back to her world." "Oh, right. I suppose I got a little carried away. The thing is, I've been obsessed with other worlds and dimensions all my life, so when you said you were from one, I guess I got a little excited. In any case, I'm afraid that my knowledge of interdimensional travel is quite limited. I'm afraid that I can't think of anything that could help you get back home," Professor Sylvan said, which caused Sunset to form a somber expression on her face. "But don't worry, I have some friends in the Alola region who work at a research facility dedicated to researching dimensional rifts and travel. I could try and contact them and see if they know anything that could help, but it may take a few days for them to respond." This brought back a little bit of hope for Sunset, as hearing that there were people in this world who were studying interdimensional travel meant that they might know a way for her to get back to her own world. During this conversation, Damien had been thinking and had come up with an idea. "Hey, I have an idea. There's a massive library in Utira town that holds all kinds of different books from all over the world. Maybe there might be something that can help you get back home. After we get back from Telnor Cave and give the Augur his present, we can make our way over there." "Wait, I just thought of something even better. Sunset, you said you don't have Pokemon in your world, right?" "Yeah? Where are you going with this?" "Why don't you get a starter Pokemon with me and Wyatt? That way, you can experience what it's like to be a Pokemon trainer and learn more about them. And since we're traveling across the region, you could take on the gym challenge with us. Wait, Wyatt, you're going to take on the gym challenge, right? You guys, it couldn't hurt. I'd be able to find someone who knows me by traveling through Torrent. Might even find a way for me to get back my memories. Then it's perfect. The 3 of us can compete to get all 7 gym badges. Since we all can't take on the Pokemon League, you can see which one of us ended up becoming the strongest trainer. I don't know. I don't think I'd be a good trainer, Sunset said. I highly doubt that, Professor Sylvan said. Anyone can become a great trainer, and many of them have started from the ground up. If you don't believe me, I've sent off many trainers as a professor, and many of them wound up becoming very successful at what they do. And if you also don't believe me, I'm not joking when I say 2 10-year-olds from a small town in the Kanto region both ended up becoming champions. One of them being considered to be the greatest trainer to ever exist. You're saying 2 10-year-olds became champions of a region? Sunset asked while dumbfounded. Well, the one who ended up becoming the greatest trainer of all time took the title of champion from the second, literal minutes after she became one, but yes. Also, you may be here for a little while, so it won't hurt to do something until we figure out how to get you home. Sunset looked between Professor Sylvan, giving her a confident smile, and Damien and Wyatt, with Damien having an excited grin on his face, while Wyatt gave her a thumbs up to show he believed in her. She began to think this over, as it was true that it may take some time for Sylvan's colleagues to contact her back, and it may take even longer for her to actually get back to home herself. She also felt that what they were saying could be true. She could end up becoming an amazing trainer, even if she hardly knew next to nothing about Pokemon. But she may learn more about them by traveling around the region and experiencing what the world had to offer. After a couple more minutes of thinking, she eventually came to a decision. I guess it wouldn't hurt to become a Pokemon trainer. So yes, I'll become a trainer and experience what this world has to offer. Well, now that that's settled, I assume you all don't have your trainer cards or IDs, Professor Sylvan asked. You need IDs to be trainers? Sunset asked. Yes, it also helps with showing that you're taking part in the gym challenge as well. In any case, wait right here for just a moment. Professor Sylvan went down the stairs in the corner of the lab. After a couple of minutes, she then came back up carrying 3 boxes that she set on the floor in front of the 3 of them and put them side by side. She then opened both boxes and each revealed to have multiples of 2 different devices, but the third one contained something different. The first box looked like a slightly bigger phone, as it was a device with a screen on it that came in different colors. There was also a small dot at the bottom of it with what appeared to be a small white orb on the top as well. The other box had a device similar in shape that was a lot different and came in various colors, though most of them were either black or white. Towards the bottom of the front was a design that Sunset remarked looked similar to the balls the man had put on the table. Each device in the box had different colors for the design. The one thing they all had in common was a white button sticking out of the middle of the design. A small black screen was above the design on the bottom, with there being what appeared to be a green light right next to it. Finally, towards the bottom was a small indent that was the same color as the design, and there appeared to be small lints at the back of the device towards the top. The last box contained a variety of small cases that all had a clear lid that allowed one to look inside and see that there was a strip of black cushioning foam. The backs of the cases were all different colors and had the same ball design as the second device had. Are these what I think they are? Damien asked. Yes, this first box here contains what is known as a Dex Nav. These are pretty handy devices that offer a variety of features. They allow you to view the map of the region you're in, or any region for that matter. They allow you to access the local news and a special channel that showcases things that may interest trainers. And if you all will be traveling, it has a call feature that will allow us to stay in contact and allow me to update you all if anything regarding a way to help get Sunset home pops up. Also, they are what you use to create your trainer IDs, so go ahead and start them up as you will need them for the next device, Professor Sylvan said. They did so by first choosing their Dex Navs. Sunset chose one that slowly changed from a fiery orange at the bottom to red as it reached the top. Wyatt chose one that had a purple and black checkerboard design, and Damien chose one that had a green and white zigzag design on it. Booting the Dex Navs up, they found that they had to first answer a series of questions to help create their IDs and register their Dex Navs. These were simple questions like what their name was, what gender they were, when their birthday was, and there was one that said what their favorite color was for some reason. However, there was one question that Sunset had to ask about. It's asking what my home region is. What should I do about that? Well, I suppose just put the Torrent region, as I don't think it would expect you saying that you're from another world, Professor Sylvan said. Sunset did just that, inputting Torrent for the answer. Finally finished a little bit later as the Dex Navs began to process their answers before the words printing IDs showed up on the screens. Then, a small card came out of the small slot of the bottom of the Dex Navs as it now said IDs printed. He took their IDs out of the slots and admired them and realized why he had asked for their favorite color. Some of the text on their IDs was that color. These came out pretty well, Wyatt said. Alright, now that your trainer cards have been printed, you are now free to take a Pokedex. Go ahead and choose the one that catches your eye, Professor Sylvan said as the 3 of them chose a Pokedex after putting their Dex Navs in their pockets. Sunset chose an orange one with a red ball design on it. Wyatt chose a black one with a purple design, and Damien chose a green one with a white ball design. A Pokédex, or Pokémon Index, is a device that is invaluable to a trainer. It allows a trainer to see what kind of Pokémon they've encountered and gives in-depth details about it. Everything from an entry giving an overview of a Pokémon to even their stats, Professor Sylvan said. Stats? What is this, a video game? Sunset joked. Stats are essentially a term we use to measure a Pokémon's capabilities within a specific field. There's HP, which indicates how much stamina a Pokémon has and how much of a beating it can take before it faints. Attack, which indicates how strong a Pokémon's physical moves are. Defense, which measures a Pokémon's resistance and ability to take physical moves. Special Attack, which indicates how strong a Pokémon's special moves are. Special Defense, which measures a Pokémon's resistance and ability to take special moves. And Speed, which indicates how fast a Pokémon is. Moves? Just how much is there to Pokémon? A lot, but you can learn more about that later. Anyways, in order to register your Pokédex, all you need to do is scan your trainer card. These Pokédexes in particular are that of the Unova model. I recently got a shipment of these to hand out to trainers. All you need to do is hold down that button that's sticking out and the Pokédex will enter scan mode, which will also be what you use to find out what Pokémon you encounter. They did as she said and pressed and held the white button on their Pokédexes. This caused a portion of the back to slide up and rest on top of the Pokédex, as the second screen was now on top of the first one and showed what was being seen by the lens at the back. Putting their trainer cards within the view of the lens, the Pokédex began to scan them before a satisfied beep was issued from it as the words Pokédex registered to user ID appeared. Once they let go of the button, Professor Sylvan told them to click the button again to bring the back part down again, which they did and put their Pokédexes and trainer cards in their pockets. Sylvan then directed their attention to the box filled with cases. Lastly, these are your badge cases. They are where you can store your gym badges if you don't want to pin them on your clothing or anything else. Also, it's satisfying to show them off this way, Sylvan said as they all grabbed one. Sunset grabbed one with the red back that had yellow hearts on it. Wyatt grabbed one with a purple back with the white ball design on it, and Damien chose one with the green and yellow plate design on the back. While Wyatt and Sunset both put theirs in the largest compartment of their backpacks, Damien simply stuck his inside a pants pocket. Now, I suppose there's just one final thing left to do. That's to give you 3 your starter Pokemon, Professor Sylvan said, which prompted Sunset to look at the table where the man had placed the 3 balls. She remembered him mentioning about how she should give the Pokemon he had to them. She had been confused as there didn't appear to be any Pokemon there. Professor, who was that guy you were talking to? And what are those balls he put on the table? This caused Professor Sylvan to release a heavy sigh as she debated as to whether or not to tell the 3 kids in front of her who that man was. In the end, she eventually decided they should know the truth. That man that was in here just now is one of my colleagues in university. He's a smart man and a great scientist, Professor Sylvan said as she paused her sigh before she continued. He's also the leader of the Cult of Perfection. 3 of them all had different reactions to this. Sunset was surprised that she didn't think someone who looked like an average man was a cult leader. Wyatt wondered why Professor Sylvan knew a cult leader personally and also wondered what this Cult of Perfection was about. Damien's jaw dropped as he gasped. A cult leader? Those people are evil, Professor, Damien exclaimed. You shouldn't be talking to them, let alone be accepting gifts from them. Professor Sylvan walked to the table and looked at the 3 balls with an intense gaze before she turned back to the 3 of them. Tell me, you 3, though I suppose it was more towards Wyatt and Damien. Have you ever heard of something called Delta Species? Professor Sylvan asked. Can't say I have, Wyatt said. Me neither, Damien said. Then allow me to explain. Delta Pokemon are based on a phenomenon in the faraway Holland region. They're Pokemon that have different DNA than normal Pokemon. Simply put, they're typed differently than normal. An example would be an electric-type Dragonite or a water-type Porygon. Okay, now there's types? Seriously, how much is there to Pokemon? Sunset questioned. A lot. Types are pretty much what sort of affinities and elemental abilities a Pokemon is naturally in tune with. For an instance, a Fire-type Pokemon has an elemental affinity with fire and can utilize it. Also, moves also have types as well. This is important as depending on what type a Pokemon is, they're either resistant or weak to certain moves. This is especially true with Dual-type Pokemon, which are Pokemon that have 2 types. Having 2 types can be both a blessing and a curse as it allows a Pokemon to resist more types and even resist a type with greater efficiency, though it also means that they may have more weaknesses to certain types and be even weaker against a specific type. So Pokemon in these moves you mentioned have elemental affinities and properties? I guess I can understand that at least. That's good. Anyways, these Pokemon on the table now are Deltas. Not sure what type or types they are, but they seem to be experiments of Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, Professor Sylvan said as she gestured towards the 3 balls which Sunset looked at with confusion. Professor, those are balls. I don't see any Pokemon, Sunset said. Right. Suppose you wouldn't know about these. These balls are a type of device known as a Pokeball, and the Pokemon are inside of them. How? The Pokemon just really tiny? Oh, not at all. The way a Pokeball works is that it allows trainers to catch Pokemon and add them to their team. This is done by touching the Pokeball or throwing it at a Pokemon, triggering the catching mechanism. This causes the Pokeball to open up as the Pokemon is transformed into raw energy that is then sucked up into the ball where it's shrunk and reformed inside a habitat the Pokeball generates to make the Pokemon inside comfortable. Once the Pokemon is successfully caught, the trainer can let the Pokemon out by pressing the button on the Pokeball, opening it up and allowing the Pokemon to be turned back into energy and flow back out of the Pokeball and back to normal size once it reforms. It can be returned back to the Pokeball at any time by pointing the Pokeball at the newly obtained Pokemon. It's also able to grow and shrink to help save space by simply holding down the button while enlarged and just clicking the button while it's shrunken. Sunset stood there dumbfounded at what she had just heard. You're telling me that you all have found a way to transform living creatures into raw energy and store them inside balls where they generate an environment for the creature? That's right. Old would have a field day in this world trying to figure out everything, Sunset thought to herself. Anyways, the Delta Pokemon in these Pokeballs are scientific marvels. I'd love to keep one to study. Normally, I'd give you an Eevee as a Pokemon to start you off on your journey. However, it seems there are 3 more options for you to choose from. As such, I'll offer you 3 this. You may choose one of these 3 Delta Pokemon to travel with, or the Eevee I normally give away. Choice is yours to decide, Professor Sylvan said as she walked to the table and stood behind it. Wyatt, Sunset, I don't know what to do. I don't like the idea of Pokemon made by a murderer, but also, I don't like the idea of these Pokemon being left all alone forever. You guys make the decision and I'll follow it, but make it quick. We don't know when the Augur is arriving, Damien exclaimed. The 2 of them looked at each other and began to think about what they should do. Finally, Wyatt was the one who came to a decision. I think we should take a Delta Pokemon. I'm with Damien as I don't think these Pokemon should be alone, and considering that they have been made in a lab or something, probably never experienced the outside world. Kinda want to be there to help them with that, with or without memories. What about you guys? Sunset thought Wyatt's words over and remembered everything she's learned, how friends should be there to help others and help them experience fun and amazing things. She smiled and gave a nod while wearing a confident smile. I'm with you. I'll choose one. Then I guess I'm choosing one as well. Guess let's see what we have to choose from then, Damien said. They nodded and headed over to the table where Professor Sylvan was waiting for them. So you all want to choose a Delta then? Yes, all 3 of them said in unison. Alright, while I do wish I could have kept one to help in my research into the Delta phenomenon, I understand you 3 don't want to leave them alone. Now then, suppose you should see what you have to choose from then, Professor Sylvan said as she picked up the Pokeball on the left side. This one should contain the Bulbasaur. Normally Bulbasaur are both grass and poison types, so let's see what type this one is. Professor Sylvan clicked the button and the Pokeball opened, letting out a stream of blue and white energy that gathered on the table, forming a creature before it dissipated, revealing the Delta Bulbasaur. It had an amphibian-like appearance as it had pink skin and had 4 legs that it walked on. Its head was round with 2 small ears that were flopped against its head, and a small white flower could be seen on its right ear. Its eyes were a soft shade of light purple, and it had a wide mouth with 2 sharp teeth sticking out of the ends of it. On its back was what appeared to be some kind of blue bulb with a small purple crystal sticking out of the top, as 2 clumps of something white and fluffy, possibly cotton, stuck out of the base of the bulb on the left and right side. Finally, various spots that were either pink and blue were on its body and the bulb. When it was released from its Pokeball, the Delta Bulbasaur looked up at the 3 of them, slightly backed up as it had a nervous expression on its face as it appeared to be cautious of everything around it. Aw, it's adorable, Sunset said as she watched the Delta Bulbasaur. You can use your Pokedex to find out more about it. Why don't you give it a try? Professor Sylvan suggested. Sunset took out her Pokedex and held down the button, prompting the backs to slide up and the top screen to show what the lens were seeing. Moving the Delta Bulbasaur into its view, the bottom screen lit up as information regarding what category it was, what type it was, and even what gender the Pokemon being scanned was, as a robotic voice began speaking from the Pokedex and read off a description at the bottom of the screen. Delta Bulbasaur, the Crystal Pokemon. Female, Fairy and Psychic type. Delta species discovered by Echo III. The crystal growing from its back uses its mental energy to grow. A Fairy and Psychic type. Not a bad type combination. Now let's see the Charmander. Normally, Charmander is a fire type, so I'm curious to see what it looks like, Professor Sylvan said as she picked up the middle Pokeball. Letting out the Delta Charmander after the blue energy dissipated was something that caused Sunset to freak out a little bit as she thought this thing was brought to life through necromancy. Delta Charmander had the appearance of a skeletal lizard with a bone-white skeletal body with 2 small arms and legs that both had sharp nails at the end of them. Its head was reptilian in appearance, with there being a maw filled with sharp teeth and 2 small horns that were bumpy at the end grew out of its head. It had glowing purple eyes that were within black eye holes at the front of its head. Finally, at the end of its tail was a small purple flame that seemed to flick around lazily. After coming out of the Pokeball, the Charmander gave one quick look around its environment, gave a big yawn, and then sat down on the table with a lazy smile. I suppose I can already guess what type it is. Wyatt, would you mind checking it with your Pokedex? Professor Sylvan asked. White obliged, using his Pokédex to scan the Delta Charmander before its info appeared on the bottom screen and a robotic voice began to read off its description. Delta Charmander, the Bone Lizard Pokemon. Male, Ghost and Dragon type. A Delta species discovered by Echo III. While the flame on its tail doesn't appear immediately after its birth, it burns more fiercely with age. A Ghost and Dragon type? Off the top of my head, that type combination both resists and is weak to a lot of types. Now then, let's see what type the Squirtle is. Normally it's only a water type, and considering how interesting these two have proved to be, I'm quite interested. Professor Sylvan said as she grabbed the last Pokeball, the one on the right. A Ghost and Dragon type? Off the top of my head, that type combination both resists and is weak to a lot of types. Now then, let's see what type the Squirtle is. Normally it's only a water type, and considering how interesting these two have proved to be, I'm quite interested. Professor Sylvan said as she grabbed the last Pokeball, the one on the right. Letting out the Delta Squirtle, the energy dissipated and what could be best described as something out of a cartoon show was revealed. The Delta Squirtle had the appearance of a bipedal turtle with dark maroon skin and a shell with the underside, or in front in this case, being yellow and the back was dark orange. Around its waist was a blue belt wrapped all around its shell. There were black ribbons wrapped around its wrist as well. Its eyes were pure white, though around them was some kind of black mask like the kind a superhero would wear, as it even had a black cape that was attached to where its head came out of its shell. Finally, its tail was the same dark maroon as its skin, but was curled at the end, with it also giving off the appearance of a sharp feather. After coming out of the Pokeball and seeing all of them staring at it, the Delta Squirtle began posing and flexing as though trying to impress them. Cool, looks like a superhero or maybe even a ninja, Damien said as he pulled out his Pokédex and used it to scan the Delta Squirtle. Delta Squirtle, the ninja Pokemon. Male, dark and fighting type. A Delta species discovered by Echo III. Though its shell causes it to stand out when hiding in the shadows, it conceals itself using the cloth on its back. Dark and fighting type? Not too bad. Well, now that you know what your options are, who wants to choose theirs first? Professor Sylvan asked. I think Sunset should, Damien said. Me? Don't any of you want to go first? I'm fine with letting you two go first. Besides, this will be the Pokemon that you will adventure with. I've already seen and interacted with Pokemon all throughout my life, but you haven't, so go ahead. I can wait. Okay then. Sunset said as she looked at the 3 Delta Pokemon in front of her. Each caught her interest in various ways as she observed each of them closely. The Delta Bulbasaur seemed shy and nervous with her surroundings, which Sunset remarked that it was acting the same way that Fluttershy does when she's scared. The Delta Charmander, while cool looking in her eyes, reminded her too much of the necromantic arts that were used in Equestria back in the days of Nightmare Moon. While those arts did interest her, while she was Celestia's pupil, she eventually decided to stop studying once she realized just how gruesome that kind of magic was. Finally was the Delta Squirtle, which reminded her of Rainbow Dash. Its posing and flexing would definitely seem like something she would do, but it felt like it was going a little bit overboard with it. Stopping to think, she finally made her decision as she walked right to the Delta Bulbasaur and crouched a little bit so she was eye level with her. Hey there, I'm not gonna hurt you, Sansa said as she talked to the Delta Bulbasaur in a soft tone as it watched her warily. I know you're scared right now. You're in an unfamiliar place filled with people you don't know, but that's okay. So am I. It's complicated, but I need some help to get back home. I was wondering if you could help me. The Delta Bulbasaur seemed to slowly calm down, and she began to slowly inch a little bit towards Sunset. When it was right in front of her face, Sunset felt a weak buzz at the back of her head as the Delta Bulbasaur's eyes began to glow pink. Then, she was surprised to see moments of her past appear around her, though she couldn't physically move. Examples include moments of when she was still a filly, at the time she had with Celestia back when she was still her student, her running away to Canterlot, her time spent being a bully, her being accepted by her new friends, and events like the Battle of the Bands and friendship games. Finally, the memories began to fade away as the Delta Bulbasaur's eyes returned to normal before it got closer and began to nuzzle Sunset. Sunset picked up the Delta Bulbasaur in her arms as the Delta Bulbasaur looked up at her and smiled. Though Sunset couldn't help but ask Professor Sylvan something. What was that just now? Sunset asked. What was what? Professor Sylvan asked. I felt this weird buzzing sensation and began seeing moments of my past, though I couldn't move or do anything while it was happening. Considering that Delta Bulbasaur is a psychic type, it sounds like it was probably seeing your memories and judging whether to trust you or not. Looks like it did in the end. She looked at my memories? Sunset exclaimed as she looked down at the Delta Bulbasaur, surprised that it was able to do something that she could as well. Yep, Psychic-type Pokemon are able to utilize many psychic abilities and powers that involve using the mind. Even if it's a Delta, I wouldn't have expected anything different from a Psychic type. Now then, since you have chosen the Delta Bulbasaur, would you like to give her a name? I can give her a name? Yep, it's a common thing for trainers to name their Pokemon. While some may choose not to do it, it doesn't mean the bond that they form grows slower. Sunset looked back down at the Delta Bulbasaur as she began to try and think of a name for her. She decided that she wanted to name her something that stood out about her, though it was when she noticed the flower on its ear and thought about the colors it had that she came up with the perfect name for her. Petunia. How does Petunia sound? Sunset asked the Delta Bulbasaur, who gave a happy smile in response and nuzzled her as if to say yes. I guess she likes the name. Alright then, here's Petunia's Pokeball. Professor Sylvan said as she gave the newly named Delta Bulbasaur's Pokeball to Sunset, who shrunk it and tucked it into her pockets. Now I believe Wyatt is up next. Go ahead and choose your Pokemon. Wyatt looked between the two options he had and after some consideration, approached the Delta Charmander. When he was in front of him, the Delta Charmander stood up and looked at Wyatt. Then, unseen by the others except himself, the Delta Charmander's expression shifted to a serious glare as Wyatt felt a shiver down his back as if the Delta Charmander was staring directly into his soul. It felt like multiple hours went by when in reality a couple of seconds just passed before the Delta Charmander's expression went back to being somewhat lazy as it lifted its arms up and began to try and tiptoe. Getting the message, Wyatt lifted the Delta Charmander up and onto his shoulder, where it sat lazily as it now had a happy expression on its face. I feel like it was staring into my soul, Wyatt said as he held onto the Delta Charmander on his shoulder. That tends to happen with ghost types. They have a natural affinity with spirits and souls, so they're able to somewhat interact with them. Probably just looking into yours to see what kind of person you are, Professor Sylvan said. That's so, Wyatt said as he looked at the Delta Charmander while thinking of a nickname for it. He almost immediately came upon one that seemed to fit the skeletal lizard perfectly. How do you feel about the name Shade? The Delta Charmander let out a happy-sounding growl as its smile seemed to grow bigger as it accepted its new name. A term used for a spirit of the dead? Not bad. Now you'll need this Pokeball, and I'm assuming you're happy with getting the Delta Squirtle, Damien, Professor Sylvan said as she grabbed Shade's Pokeball and handed it to Wyatt, who shrunk it and tucked it away. I'm fine with it. I was kinda hoping I'd pick him anyway. I already know the perfect name for him. What do you say? Are you ready to be partners, hero? Damien asked the Delta Squirtle, who gave a thumbs up. Picking him up, Damien set the Delta Squirtle on his shoulders as it hung onto his head as Professor Sylvan gave him his Pokeball. Well, I suppose that now I have to say congratulations on becoming official trainers, you three, Professor Sylvan said. Hey, now that we all have a Pokemon, you know what that means, right? Damien asked as he looked towards Sunset and Wyatt. What does that mean? Wyatt asked as he had a feeling he knew what he was going to say. Let's all have a Pokemon battle, right here, right now.